Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Hey, thanks.
Well, welcome back to the show. Yesterday was part
Yes.
one. Yesterday was part one. Now we're at part two. And for those who watched yesterday, we got through Melissa's life up until around 2012 ish. And, so we still got another 13 years to cover.
Oh
Yesterday
my
was a
goodness.
juicy of an episode. We're like, oh, we won't go long. And then we went long.
Yeah.
So this one will be shorter. So 2012, and if you didn't watch yesterday, go back and watch yesterday because yesterday was a good one, and this one is remain to be seen, I guess. No, I'm sure it'll be it'll be fun. All right, so 2012. At this point, you had one of your kids.
Yeah, well, I had two kids, but one of them had moved away or had left and
Lives with
went
his
to
dad.
move with his dad. Yeah, my oldest one. So I had the baby girl in 2012, and so that is after I had her. I felt like I was missing out because I was still with the toxic in a toxic relationship. Heroin was still getting used around me all the time, and I'm not blaming anybody because
Yeah,
I probably would have found it even without it being around me. I
yeah,
just felt like I was still in that selfish mindset, and I just wanted to get high.
yeah.
I thought
You
I
want to
deserved it.
escape. You
Yeah,
want to escape. And
yeah,
who were you with at this time? Like romantically, like dating, living with.
yeah. I was living with my baby girl's dad.
Okay. And how was that relationship going at the time? Was he using?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
And how was that affecting your relationship?
It was. There was a lot of roller coasters. So I just somehow I think it was more of like the bond I had with him also was the bond I had with the needle. I don't think that there was a boundary. I don't think it was separate. It
Okay.
was all wrapped up. It was all wrapped up into one. And he could talk me into anything. So, there had been times where I was trying to do better, um, and and just trying to go through the withdrawals, and then he'd be like, "Screw it, let's go get high," and I'm like, "Okay." Just he didn't have to twist my arm,
Yeah.
um, but he was really good at I just couldn't say no to
Yeah.
him.
So basically, as much as you would try, as soon as he implanted that thought of getting high in your head, then it wasn't even like a question. It was like, okay, yeah, let's do that then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, like that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Um,
And you were getting in
and
trouble. Were you getting in trouble like with cops at this time?
I had one theft charge, and it actually was in 2012 because she was already born. Um, we, I had to come up with money almost every day, so there was every day wake up and got to come up with a scheme,
Figure
like
it out.
just
Yeah.
constantly.
Yep.
Um, and we just came up with wild stories sometimes, or oh my gosh, I had to chop up a boat one time to scrap
Chop up,
it.
chop up a boat.
Yeah, with the chainsaw. It was not pretty.
Especially
Uh,
withdrawing. Did you at least get high? Could you at least get high first?
mm-mm.
No, you were withdrawing while doing this.
Yeah, and that made it even more like more of a desperation. Like,
Yeah.
and that's why, like, I went to stealing, and it wasn't like stealing from people. Like, I felt justified. Like, oh, if I steal from a big box store, they have insurance, they can cover it.
Okay.
Um, I didn't feel like I was doing anybody any damage by doing it that way. Um, so yeah, it was just constant, back then, there was ways to turn like receipts into cash. Um, and that's just what I would do. Um, and I almost always was sick. But when I was sick, it was determination. Like I nobody could stop me. I was on a mission, and I thought I was good at it at the
Yeah, we
time.
heard part one yesterday. I mean, riding bikes and getting getting which sworn by the DEA or whatever.
Oh
Like,
yeah. That was insane. It feels like sometimes I forget that that actually happened. It feels like it's a whole nother world. Maybe something I watched on TV, but it,
yeah,
it actually happened. So yeah, it was just every day of being a scheme. So it ended up, um, I'm trying to think when during this time we were having to travel like 45 minutes away to cop every time. So um at one point, the our dope boy, he owned houses all over this town. So he was like, why don't you guys come up and stay at this house and watch it for me? Pretty much, it was a trap house. And I'll get you right every day.
okay.
That seemed like the perfect idea. I'm like, this is it. This is a great idea. It was not. That was not. It was the worst idea. And this neighborhood was really. It was a bad neighborhood. Um.
You're telling me there was a trap house that he was letting you stay for free, and he
Mhm.
would get you high every day if you stayed there, and it wasn't a nice neighborhood.
No, of course it wasn't. Right? But I mean, like, you couldn't. It's. I don't know how to explain it. Um. You just had to watch your back, not just from the cops, but
Yeah.
from the people around you. Um, and we, man, it was desolate. I don't. That's just a great word. I felt empty inside, and it was just getting to the point of the addiction where I hated it, but I loved it at the same time.
How long did
I
you stay
loved the
there for?
feeling of getting high.
How long did you stay there for?
Just about maybe 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh,
We
that's not
didn't have
long.
electric. Yeah, not long. No, definitely not long. Thank God, because so where we were at, it was a one-way street. So dude had people that lived in like a house up at the top of the street. So when the boys in blue would come down, or if they felt like somebody was, the detectives or somebody was watching, they would like send out a message, and then he would alert other people because he had other trap houses on the street. So we had to stay in this house. There was no hot water, but they did have water hooked up. It was pretty much like an abandoned house, kinda, because there was nothing workable in there, and it was starting to get cold because it was like the end of September, October.
In
So at
Ohio.
nighttime it would start getting, yes, in Ohio. So it start getting cold. And so we would like huddle, me and my boyfriend and our daughter, we would huddle in a little closet, okay, and have our blankets like insulated. Um, and ended up having to like scrap to get money from like other houses that we just walked into, and would take stuff and clean it up and try to scrap it. Living in a city, a bigger city, it actually made it harder because it seemed like everybody else around us was at the same point of desolation and desperation. Like
Yeah.
everybody else was scrapping, everybody else was targeting the same houses. Um, so that made it worse. That made it so much more worse. And the businesses around were hip to it too. So it's not like you could just go into McDonald's and, I would try to go in there and go to the bathroom and wash my hands with real hot water and real soap. And, they didn't like that because they were already hip to it, like get out.
Yeah.
um, But we made it work, and we had to like heat up our soups with tea lights, little tea light candles to warm them up. Um, it was just insanity. It was insanity, and I chose to stay there. And the whole
No.
and this house was full of mothballs, so I never put my daughter down. Like I constantly had her in my
Yeah.
arms. Um, so I was still trying to be the protective mom and also an addict, living with living around scum, like for like mothballs on the floor.
Yeah.
Um,
Now,
yeah.
did anyone ever break into there when you were there?
No, no, they knew whose house it was.
Oh, okay. And
Hmm.
did you ever deal with anybody on the street besides cops where you felt in danger or you got yourself into danger when it
Yes.
came to hold? Okay, what happened?
Yeah. So the next door neighbor was this old lady, and her sugar daddy was like 80 years old, and that's actually his house was next door. So she was staying there taking care of him. Um,
How old
but
was
I would
she? The sugar
I would
daddy.
say she was probably in her 50s at the time. I mean, so not, but
Oh,
at that time I was like, 30s, and she was like in her 50s, maybe 60, and he was like 80. Like
and
he
and
didn't get
was
out of his
she
bed.
was she gross looking?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that adds up. That checks out.
Yeah. Um, and I always just thought, I don't know, elderly, you just don't think. I mean, I knew she smoked crack, and
Yeah,
I'd see her walking around high, and sometimes every morning, by the way, when we would wake up sick, there would always be a group of people just showing up at the house, and we'd have to let them in. They were all waiting for the same dude, so they weren't waiting on the street. That always bothered me because I didn't trust anybody walking in, and I always had a motto: never trust an addict. I mean, I was an addict, and I meant it, like never trust
yeah.
anybody.
So
Um,
you had to let people into your house every day so they could meet up with Dope Boy.
yeah,
Yeah, that's sketchy.
yeah, and I mean, he had stuff there, so it was like in the kitchen and up in the attic,
Oh,
where he
so you
had
guys
some of
got
his
raided.
stuff.
You're the ones going down for it, though.
Oh yeah, yeah. We had to be the squatters of the house. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Um, but
you
so it
weren't
was
getting
just
much
living in
mail to that
constant
house.
fear. Huh?
You weren't getting much mail sent to that house.
No,
Yeah.
none at all. Had to make it look vacant, make it look like nobody lived there, especially at night, and that was getting hard. Um, okay, so anyway, so I kind of knew this lady, and I always thought that she was like kind of harmless, even though I never trusted her. I'm not stupid. Um, well, she said that she wanted me to come over, and I had come over. I had gone over there before because she was always trying to like sell the old man stuff and like think that we would like it or whatever. And she was telling me that she had something and she wanted to share it with me. So I figured it was, crack. And I'm like, okay, well, um, all right. So walked over there, and I had my daughter in my hands, in my arms, because at this time she was probably 8 months, 9 months, somewhere around there. Um, yeah, I don't know, 10 months because it was October. Sorry. So yeah, so she wasn't like crawling around or anything. And I walked over there, and the lady was, she was standing there, and she kept talking about uh, guy down the street who was another dealer. He was just a lower level, and she was like, it's his birthday, and I want to do this for him, and so she was like stumbling over her words and didn't come straight out at it, and I started getting this sick feeling in my stomach, like I don't understand. I thought she had something, like, okay, where is it?
Yeah.
But I knew that she was acting all sketchy, so I'm like, okay, she's high, so evidently she already got something. And she was like, yeah, for his birthday, he wants the white girl. And I was thinking like coke, like
Coke.
he wants like real coke.
Go,
And
yeah,
she's like, "Whoa, no, he wants he already paid, and or he already gave me this, and I'm gonna smoke it with you, but he wants the white girl on the block." And I'm like, "Oh shit, that's me. That's me." Um and but I didn't change how I looked at her. I was just like, "Yes. Yeah." Like, "Oh my god, this chick just tried to sell me and she already got paid." And evidently she already smoked it. So I'm like, thinking quickly in my head, and I started to walk like towards the front door. So in her house, in that house, she had the back door blockaded. Like the whole back door was like, I think there was even like wood, you know what I mean, over the door. Like you couldn't get through that back door.
yeah,
She had that all blockaded, so you only had one exit. And I started walking, kind of, stepping towards the front door, and she kept stepping in front of me, but without touching me. So she was trying to corner me and for me to stay in her house so she could take me down to the dude's house. And I knew which guy it was. I'm like, no, 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 no. It's not going. That's not going to happen. Um, so right away, I remember I started shaking, like, because I knew it was like, this is like, I got to do something right now. And so I remember looking towards her kitchen, and I was like, what is that guy doing over there? And she just for a split second looked backwards to see, because she's all sketched out and like,
yeah.
paranoid. So I made it even worse. I'm like, what is he doing at the back door? He's in your window. And she just looked, and I just ran out that front door. My legs almost gave out on me because I was trembling, because I'm like, what is I'm not about to be a part of the human
Yeah,
trafficking. Not me and my girl. No, me and my
yeah,
daughter, not. So I don't care. And as soon as I got back into the house, I told him, and I was like trembling. I was like, shh. I tried to tell me, we got to go. We got to go now. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care what happens now. We got to go right now. So he made a phone call to his dad. Dad showed up in a couple hours and packed us out, and we left. Um, that was crazy. That was really crazy. And I was so scared because that guy already fronted her. So he was waiting, and I did not need him to show up, um,
yeah,
with the gun at the door, even though it's the other dealer's trap house. He's also a dealer too. Um, no, that definitely was a story that I could have just been a statistic, you know?
yeah. And then yeah, that's it, setting a dangerous precedent, and to allow that to happen. And
Yeah.
so, luckily, you thought on your feet to get yourself out of there. Did you get cleaned up when you went to his dad's?
No, no. We came back to the same block the next day to get high, to grab. Mhm. Um,
It
yeah,
sounds like
it
an
was
endless cycle you were stuck in.
it was. It was. Um, and getting caught a couple of times that year. Like I'd gotten chased out of uh was it Lowe's or Home Depot? They came chasing me, and I just took off and like ran through blocks and different blocks trying to get away, because I knew the guys were coming after me, because they were like speed walking, um, trying to catch me.
Well, isn't it known that Home Depot has better chances of finding random cash receipts on the ground?
Well, no. What we would do is, since the dope boy owned a bunch of houses, and he renovated them, flipped them, and then actually sold them. Like that's, was one of his things. He would do work, or not actually do work. He would have people, like we did some work for him too in the house. Like he would just have his people do work, but he would always use cash. When he went to Home Depot or Lowe's, he would just buy, washer and dryer cash. He would buy everything cash. So then he would give us the receipts, and then I would go in there, and sometimes, my boyfriend would too, go in there and grab the certain like tools he bought. Or it was always hard getting pipes and things like that out without being caught, because honestly they were on it. Like the security team at Home Depot was on it. They were no joke. It was um, it was really difficult. But at one point in time, we even took back a toilet that had been used, and got cash for it. And it was broken. It was an old toilet. We got off the side of the street because he gave us one of the receipts, and I saw it was a toilet, and I'm like, "Oh, where's the old one?" And he's like, "Out on the curb." And it was snowy by this time, so we dug it out of the snow. I cleaned it up, made the box look, try to make everything look nice, and the lady at the cashier was like trying to look at the toilet because you have to look at it before they bring it
Yeah.
back.
Yeah.
And my boyfriend was really, what he had done is he had like, I don't know, go into details, but pretty much I got one of their workers to help me bring it in. So like my boyfriend put it on the cart, and then I was like, if I get a worker to help me bring it in, it looks more legit. It looks like the worker, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Um, so I did that, and she started to try to open it, and I just started telling her the story about how I was like, my husband just, he was trying to put it in, and he cut it, and so it's got his blood on the top of it. I would just let you know. And she went like this, and I was like, oh my god, thank god. She's like this, and she's like, okay, and then she just scanned it and then gave me the cash back. But I'm sure once they opened that box up, they were not happy because it was an old used toilet, like nasty.
Yeah.
It was nasty.
Yeah.
Just things like that. I'm like, I can't believe I did type of stuff like that desperation. I was already at that point. It was just,
How long
I
did
got
all
I
this
got to
go
do it.
on for with like your boyfriend and the receipt game and going back and forth to that, street, that block that was dangerous? How long did all this keep going on for every day?
Um, about 2 years, but with the receipt games, it was maybe a good 8 months solid of doing that.
Until you got caught?
Yeah, yeah. Um,
What kind of trouble did you get into for getting caught doing that?
well, I had a charge. It was a theft charge. And the one time, so it's a bigger city, so they don't hold you for, like theft. They
Yeah.
pretty much just an OR. I had an OR bond, and I was like, yeah, I ain't gonna just get caught again. I'm not coming back. Um, that was just my mentality. Like maybe they'll forget about me. So I never, had to deal with it until I later got, later down the line when I was in rehab and was trying to do the right thing. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so now I just took off.
Okay. And
Hmm.
that's when you decided you got to find a new hustle because this isn't working anymore.
No, I just moved it to a different town.
Moving to a different town. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah, just had started had travel to a different town.
people tried the receipt hustle. I worked at Best Buy for a decade, and people would try the receipt hustle at Best Buy, but
It
our
never really worked at Best Buy.
no, it's because we made sure it didn't.
Yeah.
Like, and our security was always on top of, like, you think Home Depot was on top of it, we were on top of it, like
Well,
making
I was never stupid enough to do it at a Best Buy, so we'll just say that.
yeah, it's pretty smart that you didn't,
Yeah.
because yeah, people were definitely dumb enough to try, and it never worked out. One of the worst I saw though was because I worked as a manager all over Best Buy, like three different
Mm.
states and shit. And I started out in Massachusetts, and I was we were helping, me and like there was a lot of us. We were helping open a store up in Boston, in South
Yeah.
Boston, where it's like kind of a rough area, and we were finding empty CD wrappers in the aisles before the store even opened. So that means the new employees that hadn't even
What?
new employees that hadn't even fucking started working yet technically were already stealing from the store.
Wow.
Oh man,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh
CDs still, and
man.
this was like 2006. You know what I mean? This is a long time ago. This is 20 years ago when CDs were actually expensive and a thing.
Yes.
Um, so
Hmm. Yeah.
now, did you? When did you and him split up?
Oh, not until my clean date.
Oh, so that was that dude.
Hmm. Yeah. Yes. Um, so just to get back I'll just try to get back on track. Sorry. Like I said, a lot
2014.
happened, huh?
Yeah, 2014. Let's start from there.
Okay. So, I had children's services in 2014. Children's services was already involved with us, and they actually ended up coming to the house. So we lived with his parents, um, just doing the same thing every day, traveling, you know, and they came to the door and with the police, and there was a paper I had to sign, and I didn't sign it in time. So they were like, "Well, you guys sign this paper, like an emergency family paper." Because I had already, tested positive for all these drugs. Um, and uh, I didn't know what the paper was going to say, so I was like scared, and I was waiting to the last moment. So we had technically until 4:30 that day. Well, by 3 o'clock, they were at my house or at their house with the cops. And of course, they came like three deep, the police. Um, and ripped the supervisor. I was telling her, I'm like, I'll sign the paper. We have until 4:30, and she wasn't hearing it. She grabbed my girl out of my hands, ripped her literally out of my hands. Um, I crumbled to the floor crying, and it was a huge scene. It was a huge scene. It was traumatic, and put her in they put her in the back of the cart, in the back of the car, and the grandparents were like, "What is going on? Why they take the baby?" And they were like, so they called, and the grandparents talked to their lawyer. Like by that night, they're like, "Okay, well, they just want you to leave the house, and they'll bring her back." And I'm like, "Well, why didn't they say that in the beginning? We would have left. We would have left." Um, I didn't know what they had like the demands was, but that was my first time dealing with like children's services, and let me tell you, I hated them, um, and I was scared of them at the same time. Like I hated them, and I was scared to death of children's services, way more than the cops. Like
Yeah,
chase me if you're a cop. Children's services can take my child away and say I am no longer a parent. That was scary to me. Um, so we ended up leaving. They had her in temporary foster care with another family for an entire 24 hours. They finally took her back to the grandparents, and that actually left lasting effects on her, um, because even though she was little, like after that she was very clingy. She was very um, like would cry when I walked out of the room later. You know what I mean? It was just I
yeah,
knew that something had happened because of that episode. Um, so anyway, we were staying in. His dad owned his own business, so we were staying in his office during the day. We couldn't be there, of course, because he was there doing his business. But we were able to sleep in there on the floor. And then we would just like walk to the gas station of the little town and steal hot dogs off the rollers to eat. I mean, small town living, half homeless.
hmm.
um, so
Did
that
he know
didn't
that you
last
guys
that
were
long.
sleeping there at night?
Yes, in fact, he let us.
Okay,
They
all
were
right.
they were big enablers.
Yeah, I was just
Not because
wondering.
yeah, it was more like, they just didn't they just would still give in and, throw us money
Yeah.
um to get us from hounding them and being sick in front of them.
Mhm.
So, um yeah, we were still doing the dang thing, like, going to making that 45-minute trip every day. Usually at nighttime, and we would take one of the parents' cars and drive up and then come back. And children's services was like, I need to get help, get clean. But back then, it wasn't like, here's a list of places. Let's look through these places and see where we can get you. No, it was like, you
Yeah.
need to stop using drugs, lady, to get your
Yeah.
kid back. And I did not know how to do that, really. I mean, I had tried, and I had all these phone numbers I called, and they were all like putting me on waiting lists, and I'm like, well, then it's hopeless. As soon as I would call and like make 8 different calls, I'm sick, and I'm like, screw it. Now I gotta just come up with a scheme to get money to get right before I can do this. Like it
Mm.
always was a struggle. It really was. And like I said, it was back then, so it was like in 2014. Rehabs were harder to get into, because there was fewer of them.
Mm.
So, and I had Medicaid, so I only had like 5 choices.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah,
um,
it's not leaving many options.
no, no. So we were trying to go up to a detox, and kept telling the parents, and like, yeah, we're gonna go today, and then we would get the car and then go up there and get money and then get high, and then, oh, now we past the time you're supposed to be there, so then we had to make it the next day. Like it was just that, and that was only a few weeks, but it felt like it was forever because it was like every day, yeah, we're gonna get clean today, we're gonna go. And then it just didn't work out, so finally we get there, suitcase packed, and I'm like, finally we're gonna go into this place and we're gonna detox. And walked in there, and they did, a pee test on me, and the nurse was like, we can't take you. And I thought, well, I before we had tried this before, and we had barbiturates in our system, so they rejected, and they said, you can't, we can't take you while they're in your system. So I thought
Like,
that
which
was
ones
like
are
this,
benzos?
or I'm sorry, benzos. Yeah,
Okay, yeah, we talked about that yesterday. Yeah, okay, now
yeah.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
Yeah, so this was the same place. So we went in there, and she was like, I can't take you because you're pregnant. And I just lost
yeah,
it because I'm like, I finally was going to do this again.
yeah,
um, and I'm like, now the parents are definitely not going to believe us. Now they're going to be mad too. Now I'm pregnant. Like, what's going to happen? And they're like, well, go to the methadone clinic. And I didn't want to do that again. So uh, we actually just walked around that big city that we had lived in the trap house. We walked around with our suitcases for a few days, kind of
while,
afraid to tell them.
while pregnant.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I was freezing. It was January. It was cold. Lots of snow. So just wrapped grocery bags around my socks on my shoes because I couldn't feel my toes anymore, and just walked around and got high in a few alleys, and then
How are you
we
affording your
thought,
habit then?
running off the money that was Western Union to us, because he was like, hey, it didn't work out, we're still up here. I can't remember what the lie was at this point. We didn't say we were pregnant, didn't say
Yeah,
that at all. Was afraid to do that part, or admit to that, because I knew, oh god, now Trim Services is like, it's not good. um and I didn't realize that actually would have helped. I mean, it did help when they finally found out that I was pregnant, because it helped me go to the front of the line.
yeah.
Yeah, to get help. So and at that time, it was put on like, well, maybe you should just get rid of this one. You can't take care of the one you have. Besides the son that is
Yeah, I was gonna
moved
say,
away with
yeah,
the dad,
that they
I
don't even
wasn't
know
taking
about.
care of him either.
Yeah,
So that was a constant. It was batted and just batted into my head. The dad didn't want to get rid of it, but it was the parents that were like, "You
yeah,
need to get rid of this. This has just made it so much worse, and it's gonna make it worse." Um,
What did you want to do?
And I didn't believe in doing that, you know. But I was scared. So while we were still walking around with the suitcases, decided to walk down to their hospital downtown. And I just was honest. I was honest. I walked into the ER and I'm like, look, I just found out I'm pregnant. I'm using heroin, and I don't know what to do. Can you at least make sure everything's okay? Because I'm like scared. So the doctor actually checked me out, and he was very honest, but what he told me was, they found the heartbeat. I saw his little image, of a kidney bean, like, not the kidney bean, but, like the
Mm,
heartbeat is there, the baby's okay. And then just something else kind of kicked in me, like, okay, I have to be this baby's mom. I have
yeah.
to act like it. But the doctor told me, you can't stop. He said, don't stop using automatically, because when you go through withdrawals, your baby's going to feel it more. So then started the whole chapter of trying to not get high, but trying to get right, and try not to use too much. And, so I would just be like, just teeny, teeny, tiny little bit. I just want to get rid of the shakes and the chills and everything. So yeah, and I was serious about it. Like, I did not get high.
Like tapering down.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, but it was torture. It was torture. I was always afraid, like, that I was going to cause this baby to die. Um, so once we finally made the phone call to the parents, like, okay, come and get us, because
Yeah.
pregnant and everything. Um, we went back to the office, and it was like on a weekend, because I just remember it was the countdown. What's going to happen on Monday, when Children's Services finds out. So once they did, they talked to me on the phone, and they were like, we can get you into this place, and they will take pregnant women. So within days, I got into, they drove me there, and it was in a town I never heard of. And I spent my whole pregnancy there. I mean, not the whole pregnancy. Like, I went from that rehab. I was in there for at least 3 months, and then the uh, YWYM, not MCA, but YWCA. I went directly into like the YWCA, so it's like a sober living, and I was still
Sober
doing
living.
IOP. So
Yeah.
that whole time, like my whole pregnancy, I was in treatment.
Hmm. And what year was this?
This was 2014.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. And everything about this pregnancy was different compared to my last two. I was sicker, and it was different. So ended up, I this is where I learned about rehab, and what I should do, and I had it all right here. Like, I learned how not to get hooked, is what I thought.
Yeah.
But when they would say things like, "Well, I can never," you're all alcoholics, you're all addicts, and I'm like, I'm not an alcoholic, first of all. Um, and I could never say that I will never get high again. I could not even say it. Like, it would, like, something would bubble up inside of me, like, I can't say it. I ain't gonna mean it if I say it. So it was helpful being in rehab, but evidently I was not done. Nothing in my thinking hadn't changed yet
Yeah.
at all. And I wasn't, like, submitting, I wasn't doing the 12 steps. Like, I got a sponsor, but we didn't work on the steps. Um, and honestly, because I was pregnant, everybody looked at me like I was innocent. And so I just kind of went with it.
Yeah. They're gonna say. Yeah. Not gonna argue that.
Yeah. I didn't get drug tested. I didn't, you know what I mean? So when I got into that sober living place, um, it just felt like everybody looked at me like, Like I couldn't do any wrong, and that was dangerous
Now,
because
did you have your girl with you too?
yes, yes. So at that treatment facility, you can bring your children with you under, I forget what age it was, but yeah, like the little ones can come with you. And that was amazing because I'd never even heard of a place like that.
Yeah, I have.
So
Yeah,
yeah, so then when we transitioned into the sober living, I was with other families, like other moms with their children, but not all of them were had addictions. It was other people
mhm,
like, domestic violence,
yeah,
mental health issues, things like that. Um, so in this place, I was not mentally doing well. Um, ended up having I ended up going into labor a whole month early. And so when I went into labor, and the director of the house, she took me to the hospital. I ended up having emergency C-section, and I was all by myself. Like it was very lonely. Like I was, like there was nobody there um, that I knew, you know. So, long story short, when I was at the hospital, I ended up withdrawing from the Subutex. So I had weaned down because the doctors at like the treatment center and the facility and then the sober living, they were like, you cannot get off of Subutex. You have to wait till the baby's born.
yeah,
So I already knew. I was like, yeah, okay. Well, now Children's Services is definitely going to keep the case open because now there's a new child born with a substance in their
hmm,
system, And I was having a baby boy. So, um, uh, when he was born, he was actually born with disabilities. And I was so scared that it was because of something I did, and it wasn't.
oh, no,
Um,
probably not. Yeah,
yeah. So, but I mean, other than that, he was born healthy. It was just, he had disabilities. So that like broke my heart. I cried. And by that time, the dad was there, and we just both bawled our eyes out. Like, just it was devastating to hear that something is wrong
yeah,
with your
yeah. It's
baby,
devastating.
even though it's not. I thought they gave me a death sentence the way that the doctor was talking about it because it was Down syndrome, but he was like talking like your child's never gonna do anything. Like I thought he was gonna be a vegetable, but he's not.
Yeah,
Believe me, he's
yeah, Down
very
syndrome is.
loud and active.
Yeah, no, I know.
um,
I believe it.
yeah. So went through that, and I'm sure that kind of didn't help the situation because then I was like withdrawing off that Subutex at the hospital, so he had to stay longer for that week, and I got discharged. So the moment I got discharged, I'm like out looking for subs, and then couldn't find any subs. So then I'm like looking for anything. And like I just need to get rid of like the sweats, and like my brain was like this, the anxiety was just, oh, it was so gripping. And ended up coming back defeated because I knew I had to come back and, visit my son in the ICU. Um, and that's the only place I could have him at because he was hooked up, to all this stuff. Um,
It all the drugs.
and
Yeah.
yeah, well, not the drugs. I mean,
No, 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 no. Yeah, to come. Yeah,
because yeah, he had jaundice, and then he couldn't
yeah,
swallow when he was born because he was born premature.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that type of thing. So, so I came back in there, and I honestly felt like just because of everything that they had said, the doctor was like, oh, all about this. I felt like this would be completely different, and I didn't get to bond with him the way I did with my other kids.
The other two.
Um, and that is something that it still hurts me to think about. I didn't get to like hold him the whole time like I did with the other kids. Um, and then I felt like, some of the nurses in there were looking at me like with this junkie, with their baby. Like I knew it, but there was only one nurse that at least treated me like a human. And, she was like, He's just like any other baby. He needs your love and he needs fed and he needs his diaper changed. And I actually cried because that was the only person of the staff that actually treated me like I was, you know, like a normal mom. So,
Yeah, and that's she said exactly the right thing. I mean, I don't think all of them thought you were a junk. Did you look like a junkie?
I mean, probably. I don't know.
Because well, the other thing
I
is
didn't think
too.
so, but I just felt like they all knew my record. Like they all had my file open.
Well, there's also HIPAA, and they can't just go looking through it. And the other thing is too.
I felt that.
They might have just thought you were afraid and nervous and scared
Yeah.
because a lot of parents, when they have a child with Down syndrome, and they and next thing you know, they're kind of in and out. It's because they don't know what to do with themselves, and they're nervous and they're scared, and they think
Yeah.
that they did something, and they're beating themselves up over it, and so I think they were looking at you more with like, oh, I can't imagine what she's going through, as
You know
opposed to
what? You're probably right. You're probably right. And I
in your
spun it
head.
in my
Yeah,
head because of the shame I was carrying that
yeah,
that was the lens that they were seeing through. Yeah, you're right. That's good.
yeah. I just want to make
Um,
you feel better about that. That's all. I mean, it's 10 years
yeah.
later. It doesn't really matter that much, but at the
Right,
same
right.
time, you've been holding on to this resentment for 10 years, probably.
You're right. You're right. Yeah. Um, so hold on. Mommy's doing her meeting. Okay, get it out. Um, so
So you
I
got
oh
out.
and
You got out of there with him.
yes, yes. And actually a doctor had written a script for it was Percocet and it was like for my pain, because I had the C-section. But of
And they
course
had
I
no
wasn't allowed
idea.
to
They had
have
no
that.
idea your history.
I don't think he really cared. It was not a big script. It was like, like a 10-day thing. But I wasn't allowed to have anything like that at the sober living place, of course. So I took that prescription and I folded it and I hid it in the diaper bag. Why
I'm
didn't I
surprised you
throw it
just didn't take
away?
the whole. I'm surprised you didn't take the whole script at once.
Oh, I did, but not until I could. But that's the
Okay.
thing. I already had that reservation. You know what I mean? Like I
Yeah.
didn't throw it away. I kept it and I hid it so I could keep it later because I knew it was good for like 6 months. So
Yeah.
yeah, I already knew I was gonna like.
Do you remember
I
what it
already
was?
relapsed in my brain.
You remember what it was? Like
It was
milligram
perk.
wise?
Oh no, I don't
No.
remember.
You just knew
No.
that they were opiates.
Yeah. I
And
mean, I
that's all.
knew what it was then. I don't remember what it was now. I just remember it was something
Yeah.
I probably would have laughed at when I was deep in my addiction.
Oh, I'm
I probably
sure.
would have just,
Yeah.
I probably would have just gotten rid of it to get, the good stuff.
Yeah.
Um, is,
Towards the end of my addiction,
my mentality.
somebody once offered me. I was meeting up with him. He's like, by the way, I got this little script I got. I'm trying to get rid of these. I'm not sure if you want them. And they're Percocets. And I said, which ones are they? Obviously my first question, which ones are they? And he sent me a
Yeah.
picture, and it was 5 milligram 325s, the acetylcholine or whatever. And
Mm,
I'm like, are you giving them away for free with the sale? He's like, no, I figured like $10 a piece. And I'm like, okay, no,
oh.
no, thank you, no, thank
Yeah, there's
you.
none but filler.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not gonna do anything with them. No, thank you. They won't
Yeah.
touch me at all.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm good though. Thanks, buddy.
Um, but so I went back to the sober living place and I was by myself. I mean, I was a good hour and like 15 minutes from any family and from also the dad and like his parents. Uh and I still had to you had to do like a part-time work schedule. So I had to like work in there was like a ballet and I had to like clean it and you had to clean other things like do some work, right? While you're
Mhm.
in this to live here.
Yeah,
And
contribute.
I had no energy. I just Oh, there's my fridge in the back. I had no energy at all. Like I don't like they didn't talk about this. They don't people don't talk about this enough too. Like when I got clean off of everything, I had no energy. Like coffee didn't work, it didn't work. It didn't like oh, it was just it really sucked. And so being like, all of a sudden I gotta be like a single mom and I have this baby that he didn't cry when he was hungry, so I had to keep him on a schedule of feedings and also take care of my daughter who's there too, and she was 4 at the time. So I had a lot of responsibility and I just felt like I couldn't do it without something. I need something. So there's other girls in the other house that were on subs, and so I started getting, some of those and doing those for a little bit, and then when they ran out and it worked. I would like do one and I all of a sudden had all of this energy and I
Yeah.
could do my work schedule and also take care of the kids, and I didn't feel like high. It just gave me energy. Well, after they were eating theirs too and everything, so they were like getting high off of them, so that didn't last that long. So I'm like, now I gotta find something else. So I made a phone call and was like, I don't care what do you have. And so she had some dope. She had heroin. um so I started getting that and sober living and sober house. But like I said, I felt like everybody was like, "Oh, she's the new mom, and she has this sweet baby who has disabilities." And I didn't even know, like, like I there, like it was hard to bond with him because I felt like
Yeah.
I can't. How am I going to take care of him? Um, and
Your headset went.
nobody is going
Okay. Your
to
headset went. Melissa, your headset went.
going downstairs doing
Oh,
laundry and huh?
your headset went off for a second. You're good now.
Oh, okay.
And your headset,
So
yeah, good. Yeah.
so that's when I would start like, is it good now?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Um, so yeah, I was, snorting it, like doing laundry, and then I started looking forward to it. Of course, I looked forward to it. Like it was quick. I felt like I was, mentally addicted quick, like overnight. Um,
Hmm.
because then I was like looking forward to it, and I'm like, okay, in the middle of the night now I can do this, and and everybody's asleep, and then so it became it just became my whole life then again, like
Yeah.
it was like
Real fast. Yeah.
preoccupied with it constantly. Ended up having the kid's dad. um I had already been at this place for a couple months, jumping through the hoops for children's services. um as soon as I think it was maybe a month of after having the baby, they signed me off and I got my rights back and they were out of the picture. Like it was quick. And then that's why I'm saying, like, I felt like I had this, I don't know. Nobody was going to question me
Mm.
because, I was the new mom and,
Yeah.
you know, so I used it,
And then
and
eventually, and then you
manipulated
get out.
people with it.
Did you graduate from there, or did you get kicked out of there eventually?
I got kicked out.
Did they
Yeah.
catch you with your getting high?
Well, so what had happened was children's services out of the situation. So now that's when I was like, oh, I can do it all the time now, and like, um, had the kids' dad. I was starting to see him on the weekends because I started getting, the weekend passes and everything. Um, and so then we were like, like we ate up like that, that prescription in one afternoon. And
Yeah.
yeah. because he was trying to do good too, because Tron Services had been involved, so he was like, um, just drinking, he was just trying to, and I think just doing subs like from a doctor. Um, so quickly, uh, that kind of just spun out of control. I ended up having, he got a hold of like the stent patches. Um,
Oh yeah.
somebody he knew
They were
had a bunch of
weird.
them. Yeah. And so I ended up started smoking those.
Yep.
Um, and had, so I don't know. He came, it was the weekend and didn't want to leave and didn't want to part, because we wanted to keep getting high, and those were his kids and everything. So I ended up actually sneaking him into the sober living place, and there was
You
an
can't do
addict.
that.
There was an addict,
Oh
and
my
that's where
god.
he started staying, up in
Yeah,
the
you
attic.
can't do that.
Yeah.
No.
Um, so I would leave him with food, and he would like sleep. He would just try to sleep all day, and then we would stay up all night, and nobody knew that he was there.
Until they did know.
Well,
So it
they
sounds like you
found
eventually got
out.
caught.
They found out because the director was like, I think probably my the way I just my behavior, I'm sure, gave her red flags. So finally she was like, you know
Yeah.
what? We haven't done a drug test on you. And
Oh
I'm like,
shit.
yeah. And I was like, oh. So and she had a close worked closely with the probation department for the city. So she was like, here, I'm going to take you here and we're just going to do a drug test. Because I thought, well, maybe we're just going to do a drug test there and I can just, try to hurry and get somebody's pee real quick. No, she wanted to take me to the PO's office. And it actually ended
Yeah.
up being in the basement of a courthouse. And I was already like, oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. This is too many people in uniform. Like, this is not good. So we get in there, and I was actually like, oh yeah, I can, yeah, no, this is great. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? I got a scheme, like, because the kids are back at the house getting babysat by one of the ladies, and their dad is upstairs in the attic hiding. What am I gonna do? And we're like 3 blocks from the house, because the sober house was walking distance of like downtown and everything. So we get to the courthouse, walk in there, and I asked, she was sitting, she signed us in, she sat in like this room, right? And then the doors open, and then you had an officer standing here. So I walked out of the door and I was like, I need something to drink. And she's like, okay. And she was doing something on her phone. So I walked and I asked the officer. I was like, "Where's your guys' bathroom?" And he was like, "Oh, it's right down the hall." I'm like, "Okay." So I walked past the fountain and went looking like I was about to walk in the bathroom, and I just skated out that door and I ran. My heart was pounding out of my chest. I ran so hard. My legs did not want to run anymore, and I was just like, keep going, don't stop. I was just, I gotta hurry and beat this lady. She's gonna find out I'm not. I just took off, and she's gonna come here. And it was only 3 blocks on a car, but it's 3 blocks running is whew. Um, and I ran. I ran in the door, and I was just like, must have looked like a wild woman, because they were all
Yeah.
like, "What?" I ran in the front door and I ran right upstairs, and I was just like, open up the attic. I was like, we gotta go. We're busted. And he was like, oh, shit. And so I grabbed I just grabbed like the kids' blankets off the bed, and I grabbed like the diaper bag with, some formula in there. And I ran downstairs and grabbed the kid, and I'm just like, shaking. And they're like, what's going on? What's going on? And I was like, I was like, I'll be back. I'll be back. It's okay. I'm out of breath. And then they see him running down the stairs, and that babysitter, I mean, she was an older lady. She was great. She had such a sweetheart, but she was just like, oh, there's a man. There's a man in a women's only sober living. And he's like, hi, bye. ran out the door, and we were so frantic. As soon as we got to the street, walked across the street, and then we had to start like walking. Like, you can't run with children, holding a baby carrier, and I'm holding the other one, and in a diaper bag. Director starts. She soon saw us, and we were like, she started yelling out there. She's like, I'm calling the cops. And I'm like, and then he was doing talking for me because I'm like out of breath, like, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? And he's like, you can't do nothing. He's like, call the cops. What are they gonna do? She's free will. There's nothing holding her here. So he was like being smart about it, and I was just, because I wouldn't have known what to say. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
Um, and she followed us all the way for a couple blocks, and we're walking. Then now this time I'm like, adrenaline's taking over, and I'm no longer out of breath, and I'm just like, we're determined, we're on a mission. And the cop comes, and we all stop at this intersection, and she's like, they're on drugs, and she's got a baby, and she just got a rehab. And the officer was like, okay, so is she on probation? And she's like, no. And he said, okay, you stop. He told her to stop harassing us. He's like, you
Yeah.
need to stop following them. And he let us go. And then we went and hid down in the basement of a friend's house who I was getting, dope from. Um, and Children's Services did end up, because that director was doing her homework and finding out, who does Melisa know, and who's she
I'm
friends
sure she
with.
wanted
And so,
revenge.
yeah, so she called Children's Services, and they ended up going to that house with the police officer, and we had to hide and keep the children quiet, completely quiet, down in the basement. Um, and the girl was like, "No, she ain't here. She ain't been here. I don't know where she's at. She's not my business, none of my business," type thing. And they finally left. So I had to run and get out of that county for a while to hide from CPS. And it was just like it was a downward spiral. Like, it was,
Yeah.
um like, there was no honeymoon phase. I was just right back in it, and it
And then
was
that's how
ugly all
eventually
over
landed
again.
at that. That's how eventually landed at that place where we started at yesterday, where you ended up getting in trouble for Okay, so now we're caught up to when you went to rehab again, right?
Pretty,
Because
yeah,
you
yeah, yeah, because of
yeah.
the apartment, and the got surrounded by, yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. So now we're caught up to the beginning from yesterday, and now you're
yeah.
sober. Now you're sober
Yes.
because if you're watching part two for the first time and you didn't watch part one, at the very beginning of part one, we talk about how she got sober and what happened.
Yeah.
So we implore you to go over to part one and watch the very beginning. It's like a 20-minute story that we don't have time to get into again for part two. It
Right.
was just yesterday. Pop over and watch that one because it's ridiculous. Ridiculous. So now you're sober. How are you staying sober early on, Melissa?
Early on, so I was working a program. When I sat, I felt like God, the universe, was telling me, sit down, just sit down and stop. Um, I finally took the suggestions. I gave all my all in therapy. I had a therapist, and like, if anybody goes to rehab, get a therapist. Just,
Yeah.
because they're expensive, but when you're in therapy and treatment's part of the treatment, it did a wonder for me. It really did, because that's when I realized that how toxic my relationship was with the boyfriend, with
Which
the
one?
kids' dad.
I
With the
was gonna say
kids'
with which
dad.
one?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I always stayed with him. During the 8 years of with battling
I mean, even
heroin
toxic with your
addiction, like,
family too.
yeah,
You were even
um,
toxic with your family relationships.
yeah, yeah, it was. I was toxic with
Yeah.
everybody, but yeah. So she had me do a pros and cons list. It sounds simple, and she's like, your homework is do pros and cons list. Is if you stay with him, what it's going to look like, what are the pros and cons? If you break up with him and leave him, what are the pros and cons? And I did not realize how long the cons are compared to the pros.
Yeah.
But I had to see it on paper, and it made so much sense. And it was hard. Like, I cried. Like, it was a really hard decision, but I knew I had to do it. Um, and I had to change my people, places, and things. And I was never willing up until that point to do it. And that's because I had just finally got to the bottom of my rock bottom. Um, and it just took a lot to get there.
Yeah.
But once I did, I sat down. I didn't care how long it took with rehab. I went to that same rehab that I had relapsed. I went to that same rehab. And this time I took the suggestions. I listened. I put my all. Like, I submitted to the whole process.
You didn't
I
go to the
started
same sober
going.
living, did you?
I did go to sober living, but not the same one.
Not the same
Um,
one. Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
she hated me. she hated me because I still had friends, that stayed, and they're like, "Oh, she
Yeah.
hates you." I'm like, "Of course she does. I brought a guy in there and had him living in there. That's not right." I mean, it's not right when I look back. Like, I can't believe I did that. But when you're sick, you're sick. That's just,
Yeah.
what I did. But yeah, so I, went to meet. I just went to meetings and just really embraced being sober. I embraced it. And I didn't have a deadline in my head. Like, I always had a deadline before. Like, oh, I only have to do this much for children's services, and I only have to do, fill up my sheet for the meeting sheet. I didn't have
Hmm.
I just don't know how to explain it, but I didn't have that anymore. It was almost like, this is how I want to
You
live my
almost like you were
life.
counting down the days to get high before. You were like counting down, like, okay, I just need to put in these 30 days and I can get high again.
Yeah.
And this time
Yeah,
you
and
didn't
it
have that reservation to get high again.
yeah, yeah, there was no deadlines or anything. No deadline. And um and part of, my recovery story was that, I like submitted to God, and ended up, when I went into sober living, um it was it just it did a lot more work. Did a lot more work on, like, the heart and the mental health. And um and 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 then I ended up getting, children's services was still involved. I ended up having to fight harder to get my kids back. I had gotten the daughter back when I was in rehab because she was just with the grandparents. But with my son that had disabilities, nobody would take him. So he actually had to go into real foster care. And that was the hardest signature I had to, you know, fill out, was actually saying, yeah, he could go. Um, but ended up uh, that being, a good thing. But I had to, fight harder, and
Yeah.
it took longer to get him back, um, because he would be so dependent on me, you know. Um, and I got a job, and I ended up getting a car when I was in sober living. And I just was, realized that I was actually good with money when
Hmm.
I'm sober. I know
Yeah.
how to save a
You
dollar.
know how to stretch money. Yeah. You know how to stretch money out now.
Yes,
You
yes.
learn
I
some
was
valuable
able to,
lessons.
like, get that car, and
Yeah.
um, you do the next right thing, and that's just what I did. Um, and ended up reconnecting with the first boyfriend I ever had, that actually was, like, was my first, like, true love.
Hmm.
Um, when we were teenagers, uh, and when I had told you before, like, I had gone to church and stuff, like, that's where I met him before, and his family. And then we split off, and then suddenly it came back where we got back together after decades of
Hmm.
never, seeing each other or talking to each other. But even that, I wasn't jumping into it. I was like, and take my time. So I got my own place and got custody back of my son, and that's when I got my own place. Then moved out of sober living, but I was in sober living for 9 months.
Yeah. How much custody
Yeah,
did you get back from your son? Get back of your son?
full.
Oh, you got full. Because at that point he must have been what, like 15, 16?
Oh no, not the old one. The oldest one
Oh,
was still with
okay.
his
That's why I
dad,
was
and
so
he's
confused.
still. Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
that I
I'm
was like,
sorry.
damn. All of a sudden at 16, he's like, I'm gonna up and leave dad, and then go live with my mom that I don't see.
Yeah, no, I reached out to him, but I knew that he hated like he had said he hated me, and I just knew there was he had I had to let him feel those feelings. I had to let him go through that, but I also was there to show him that I was not leaving. I'm not leaving again. This is not going to happen again. Um, so I just gave him time. That took a few years to start, like, the conversations back up, and
Because
I
he's
had to
what, like
find out who
25
he
now, right?
was. Hmm?
Is he like 25 now or something like that?
He's turning 24. He's
Okay,
turning
yeah,
24.
yeah. I knew it was just you. Okay, yeah, I knew it was something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. And but the youngest son, the one with Down syndrome, yeah, I got full custody back. Um, and got my first apartment on my own, like my very first one where I didn't have people living with me. And I was so proud of myself, and just where I was at. um yeah, so, and then after that, I ended up just kind of like, not going to as many meetings anymore, because when I had little ones, I used to pack like crayons, and you pack like a big bag full of activities for them to do.
Yeah,
um, and then I found with my son that had Down syndrome, it just was kind of harder. When he was a baby, it was easier, but then when he got a little bit older, it was harder for me. Like, I wasn't even listening to anything going on around me, because I was just constantly like, you know taking care of him and my daughter, trying to keep her entertained. So then I started just drifting away from the recovery meetings. Um, and then I was going to church at a local church around there, and that was fulfilling. So that was like, giving me, still where I was still working on myself.
yeah.
Um, and then I stopped going to meetings altogether and became like a dry drunk
I was gonna say
because,
dry drunk, white knuckle on
yeah,
it.
yeah, because I just started working like constantly. Um, and I was really unfulfilled then. Um, I was ended up having my fiance then, and his oldest moved in with us, and we all got into like a bigger apartment.
Was
Um,
this your fiance, the guy from the beginning, from the year when you were a kid?
yeah,
Okay, cool. Okay.
yeah. So, and and he's hardworking, and he went through his own bout of addiction, and overdosing and all that too. um and did I say I had overdosed before? I don't remember if I mentioned it on the first one, but I did.
Um, yeah, you did.
Okay, good. Just want to make
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. We discussed a
um
lot.
okay, yeah, no, I talked a lot yesterday. But yeah, so I still had my defects, and I was still really unhappy. And I mean, I was happy, but it was like short lived. Like, I didn't have like the joy,
Long terms, yeah,
inside. Yeah. And I know it was because I just stopped applying myself. And I thought it was okay where, well, I never want to get high again. I know I can say that now.
yeah,
I could say that then too, but I still thought, well, drinking's still okay. Like, I could, I'll be able to party sometime. I'll be able to drink sometime. I used to love the taste of beer, and I'll be able to do that. No problem. Um, and it wasn't until a few years later when like 2020 hit and everything shut down. So I was always working, like I was working overtime all the time. And suddenly I was home. And I'm like, I want to drink, but I can't just start drinking. So I was already thinking like, well, I can get this kind of liquor and mix it in with my milk and nobody's going to know.
That's right. We talked about that because remember I told you it's in this. It's in the book. Remember I told
Yeah.
you that's part of Bill's story.
Yes, yes. So that's when it dawned on me that, oh my God, I'm an alcoholic too. All this time, I didn't know. But never, I never put two and two together. And then, and I never told anybody about my recovery story. Like we moved away. I moved back towards, like, back when I graduated from high school, I moved in the same area. And nobody knew my story. Nobody really knew that I had struggled with drugs, really, besides my family.
Yeah.
Um, and I had made amends with even my family members. Some of them did not. I don't
Except.
think they still have accepted, but at least I did my part,
Yeah.
and I owned up to the wrong I had done to them. Um, and I think everybody kind of deals with that too. Like not everybody's going to accept the fact that you've changed.
And it's not your
It,
responsibility to make them change their mind.
yeah, right. Um, but so 2020 and everything shuts down, and I realized, oh, I'm an alcoholic too, but I still wasn't gonna, like, now I'm definitely can't go to meetings. Um, and I ended up finding out I was pregnant. I thought I was going through like early menopause because I just turned 40,
Yeah.
and so I'm like, yeah, no, something's not right.
And that's the little one in
um,
the background going into the fridge.
yes, yes. Found out I was pregnant. I was like, oh my God, what am I gonna do? Um, but just, then we got back to work, and we went right back to overtime, working overtime all the time, 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. Man, I don't miss that at all. And my brother, the one that I had first, he had first introduced heroin to me before I even knew what it was, when I was, 20 or 21, 22, somewhere around there. He actually got out of prison and started doing good. Um, and something happened, and he ended up suddenly going into a seizure and dying. And this is December 2020.
I'm
So I
sorry.
was really pregnant. And the moment I heard, something's happened to your brother, because I was working, and I just happened to look at my phone. Like, you're not allowed to have your phone's on the floor, and I always abided by that. But I used to listen to music, that got me through the 12-hour shift. And so I was going down to like turn off my music, and looked at my phone, and I saw a message that had just come through, and it was like, "Hey, your brother had a seizure. He's going to the hospital now." And I knew right then he's dying. Like, I don't know, I just knew it
That
was
intuition.
final.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a, I hope he's okay. It was like, it's a final thing.
Yeah.
Um, and I wobbled out of the factory and went straight to the hospital, and it was very traumatic. Um, it was just very traumatic what I saw. And within 1 week, he was in a coma. Um,
Mm.
when he was like at his apartment, he went into a seizure. His girlfriend was laying next to him, and she actually felt it. Like, she woke up to seeing him seizing up. And to this day, it's been a mystery. I don't know if he got something bad, because he was
Yeah.
on a monitor, ankle monitor.
Mm.
He was on, he had parole. They're on parole too.
Mm.
And so I mean, he would just drink and like smoke weed. Um, and he was working. So he was, doing good for himself. So I don't know what happened. Don't know. And even the doctors didn't know. They said that he was a mystery, is what the doctors came to tell us 7 days after he was in this coma. His body started shutting down, all of his organs. Um, and it was very traumatic. And I was in there with him and, held his hand until his last breath. Um,
They couldn't do an extensive
and
autopsy.
no, the autopsy came back saying that his body can't had fentanyl overdose due to the medicine at the hospital. So the fentanyl that he was given at the hospital ended up overdosing him as his organs were shutting down.
That's weird.
It is really weird because when he got in there, the first thing we were like, "What's in his system?" And they were like, "Well, it's just alcohol, um, THC, and some steroids he had been doing,
Yeah,
which he used to do when he would work out. Is he would do steroids, and that's why they said, there's no heart problem. His brain activity was fine. Like he could hear the doctors talk because he was squeezing the one day. Like, they're like, squeeze your left hand, squeeze your right hand.
yeah,
But he was on the respirator. Like everything was was breathing for him and it was keeping his heart beating. So like the rest of his body was shutting down. And they said we don't know why.
yeah,
So it was just a mystery. So yeah, his autopsy didn't do us any good because it was 7 days, you know what I mean,
yeah.
later. And so all it was that he succumbed to the fentanyl.
It's a shame. Do you think you're gonna
Yeah.
get back into meetings?
I've been doing them. I'm actually co-chairing. It's a recovery meeting, Bible-based or faith-based, um, life recovery. So it's like recovering, from any
Yeah,
addiction.
yeah.
Um, and I
How
love
long,
it.
how long have you been doing meetings again?
I started getting back into them the beginning of this year.
Nice.
Yeah.
And they've been helping.
Yes. Yeah. And that was the one thing that, all this time I never really spoke about my recovery out
Mm,
loud anyway.
yeah,
And when I finally shared it with a friend of mine who was going through something, she was like, "Oh, I never knew that about you." And she cried because she felt so alone in what she was struggling with. And I realized, I'm not doing a service to anybody by being quiet. Like I need to,
yeah,
it just lit a fire inside me. So then I wanted to start helping other people that was, other women that have been where I was and felt like there's no way out. Um, so yeah, I'm doing that. And, um, you know, uh, there's some other recovery meetings I've been wanting to check out, but I've been doing them usually Zoom or,
yeah.
just catching one online.
You do
Um,
them later at night when the kids are asleep.
Yeah, or during the day. I know there was one, I
I
think it
was
was
gonna say you could
Mondays
check out
at
Recovery
like,
Dharma if you like to meditate.
um, yeah, I do a lot of praying.
Well, meditation,
Oh, okay.
meditation. My wife's very big into Recovery Dharma, and they run a meeting on Friday nights at 9 p.m. And Wednesdays at 7 p.m. It's probably impossible for you at 7 p.m. on Wednesday. But
Yeah.
Friday nights at 9 p.m. and it's on Zoom, and I can get you the information. And that's more of like a
Yeah.
Buddhist approach to recovery. And then I'm very big in NA, where like Thursday
Yes.
nights I host at 9 o'clock at night. Friday nights I co-host, and then I host throughout the week randomly. I cover people's hosting. Like last night I hosted. So if you ever want to come to NA and listen and hang out, because narcotics was a part of your story, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I went to NA, AA, HA,
Yeah,
before, and just kind of embraced it all. I didn't care for hugs, so a virtual NA would be best.
well, yeah. I mean, the NA meeting I do is Zoom, and it's based out of Santa Cruz, California, and
Yeah.
it's really laid back. And there's usually like 20 to 30 people in there, so it's not too big, it's not too small. and it's fun. So like the meeting I host like tonight is a speaker meeting, and where there's a speaker for 20 minutes, and then we all share and like relate to the speaker.
Oh, that's
um
cool.
you would actually relate to tonight's speaker because she's been on my show, and she was in a very toxic relationship while in addiction, that ended with a child and get her getting clean, and yeah, so it's a pretty cool story. She's out of Minnesota,
Yeah,
but
you have to send that to me. I know I have church tonight, and then but I can listen to it probably in the car
yeah,
because I got to do some driving later. Um,
okay, but
and
yeah, good,
but yeah, so now what keeps me grounded is just I pray and journal and giving back. Giving back has
mm,
been the biggest uh I don't want to say like fulfilling thing,
yeah,
that I can do. And so that's why I start sharing my story. And as messy as it sounds, as it's coming out, um, I just hope it helps at least one person. And then I'm happy. I'll be happy if just one person's like I can relate to that, or just feel the hope,
yeah,
because there is life after addiction, and it is way better than being stuck in chains.
yeah. Well, you know, obviously you made it through COVID clean, sober,
Yes.
without even meetings. So the fact that you're doing meetings again, I have a lot of faith in you. And now you're, growing your network. So if you ever need anything, reach
Hmm.
out. And if you ever want to come back on the show and bullshit and talk more things, or maybe you and Ashley can come on together, we could have a whole big episode.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that'd be great.
we could do that too. So thank you so much for spending 4 hours with me, the last two
It's
days. You know,
it's been a pleasure. It really has.
you're like, we won't go over 2 hours. 4 hours later,
Yeah, I
um,
thought hour max.
yeah, nope, 4 hours. But I'm so glad we did though. You're the first one that was taking this long, and it's been a pleasure. So, thank you so much for being so open and honest about your story, Melissa. And yeah, I think you're killing it. Keep doing what you're doing. All right,
All right, sounds good. Thank you. All
no problem. We'll talk to you soon.
right, bye.
Bye.